So they've been like, we're almost there. We just got to get over that hump. They've even named that hump, straight up saying, we got to beat Georgia. What is up, everybody? It is Jake with Master Football back at it again. Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on everything college football, pro football, Madden, EA college football, NFL draft, anything related to American football, hit that red subscribe button. You'll not be disappointed. Also hit the like button too. And if you're on Twitter, hit follow as well. Twitter fam is growing. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, guys, so we are currently in the dog days of sports. Right now, baseball is going on. Nobody really pays attention to it. NFL draft is doing its thing. It's already done. The NBA draft just happened. NBA free agency is coming out. There's some interesting stuff there. There's going to be some UFC fights on the 7th. So there's some things that are happening there. But for the most part, it's a dead period. So it is one of those times where you start to get little tiny stories where you can see and project out to the future. There was one that came out about Michigan. Now, Michigan has done a really good job these last 2 years, won the Big Ten 2 years in a row, been bounced from the CFP 2 years in a row. So they've been like, we're almost there. We just got to get over that hump. They've even named that hump, straight up saying, we got to beat Georgia. Here we are on On3.com. Jim Harbaugh's most talented Michigan team implements a beat Georgia drill. So you come down here and check this out. The Michigan Wolverines head coach Jim Harbaugh proclaimed at Big Ten Media Days that in 2021 that his team was going to beat Ohio State or die trying. It wasn't just talk, though. Michigan named its 9-on-7 period in practice the Beat Ohio drill before winning 2 straight games against the Buckeyes, averaging 250 rushing per game. Now, the Wolverines have reportedly implemented a Beat Georgia period, according to reporter Bruce Feldman of Fox Sports and The Atlantic. Michigan is 25-3 over the last 2 seasons with 2 Big Ten championships. However, the Wolverines have lost in the CFP semifinals both years, 33-11 to Georgia in 2021 and 51-45 to TCU in 2022. All offseason, players have stressed their desire to take the next step and appear in the national championship game. And again, I don't think they want to appear in the national championship game. I think they're trying to win this thing. Again, you don't come at Georgia saying we just want to show up. Anyways, it continues on. This newly named drill is one of the ways that it's being put into practice. A couple years ago, one of the things that helped flip the switch for Michigan was they started to really embrace hey, we're going after Ohio State year-round, and they put this Beat Ohio period, which is essentially 9-on-7, and getting after them, Feldman said on the Move the Sticks podcast. He continues on, and he says, now I've heard they have a Beat Georgia period too. Now, that needs to happen probably in the recruiting office more than anything else. But again, continuing on, it goes on to later on that story. But I think we've got the gist of what's going on here. And again, it brought this up. They said 33-11, it's 34-11, whatever the situation is here. Now, remember here, this was a couple years ago. This was when Georgia was making their national championship run. They had just lost their SEC championship. They were coming in as the number 3 team in the country, and they beat Michigan 34-11. And again, you see the fact it was total domination. The first half, it was 27-3. They got a late touchdown later on, and Michigan got a touchdown at a 2-point conversion. It really just wasn't what they wanted. You saw the fact that Stetson Bennett played very, very solid, 20 for 30, 313, and 3 touchdowns. And whereas J.J. McCarthy came in spot duty, he was not the full-time starter at that point. He was kind of like a mixed guy there. However, he was much more athletic than Cade McNamara, so they had to put him in the game because nobody could run away from Cade McNamara was not run away from all those dogs on Georgia. So ultimately, they put JJ in, didn't have the success he wanted. Now, he's since done pretty well recently. And as a matter of fact, it sounds like, and this team was 2 years ago, he sat and he watched the sideline. This last year, they lost to TCU in a game that they had left a ton of points on the field. There was a play that should have been a touchdown. It was called back to the 1. They fumbled it. It's just a whole bunch of little situations right there that they messed up against TCU. TCU got it. They went to the championship and got destroyed by Georgia. But think about this. This team, again, 2 years coming here. They've lost a lot of those guys. But remember here, they get a lot of guys back in what Harbaugh says is one of his most talented teams. And again, we see this right here. 6 key Michigan football players will announce the return for the 2023 season. I mean, it's very, very important guys here. First one is running back Blake Corum. He announced his return on the Rich Eisen show, so he's coming back. We would go over here, too. We have guards Trevor Keegan and Zach Zinter. We got wide receiver Cornelius Johnson. Again, lots and lots of key guys that are like, we could go to the NFL. We could go, maybe graduate, but we want our 6th year. We want to return back to the team. They are coming back as they see something special here. As a matter of fact, it's really interesting to see. There's 2 times This is actually going to feed into and segue into my next section here. But there's 2 times that Georgia, these last 2 years, has looked pedestrian. I won't say pedestrian. They're still amazing, but they've looked, we'll say, vulnerable. That's a more appropriate term there. And Cornelius Johnson is going to lead into that because there's 2 games. Let's go into those games right now. So the first game was this game. And again, we all remember this game, looking back and seeing the historical relevance of this game, this is absolutely shocking. First of all, this got Bryce Young the number 1 overall pick because straight up, how many number 1 overall players, how many first rounders were on that Georgia defense? He went in there with Jamison Williams, Brian Robinson Jr., solid, John Mechie's pretty good, and they absolutely tore them up. 26 or 44, 421 and 3 touchdowns. The big difference was down here, was your boy Jamison Williams. And again, whether or not Michigan has a Jamison Williams or not, they do need to realize that dominant receivers are the one way to make this Georgia defense threatened. Now, they do have to replace a lot of guys up front. I'm not worried about the guys up front. They're going to be just fine. On the outside, they haven't been as dominant as they were in the middle there. So whether or not they can handle it or not, whether or not they've addressed that or not in the last 2 years, we will see. But I do know that the last 2 years, they played Alabama. Jamison Williams, 7 for $184 and 2 touchdowns. John Mechie, 6 for 190, 6 for 97. So 26 yards a catch, 16.2 yards a catch, 13 catches and 3 touchdowns, and almost 250, 260, 270 passing, whatever it is. That's a bad day for the corners on the outside. And then again, we go to this last season because there was another game where, again, they had issues on the outside, and it was a lot closer than they wanted it to be. Oh, those pesky Ohio State guys, they lost 2 games. They lost to Michigan and then lost by 1 on a field goal that they missed. They missed it at midnight. So they were winning, or they were doing fine in 2022, and then 2023, they missed the field goal. Whatever. But continuing on, we see the fact that we come down here, we check out Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison Jr. Emeka Egbuka, 8 for 112 and a touchdown. Marvin Harrison Jr., 5 for 106 and 2 touchdowns. I'm telling you, up until he got knocked out of the game, and actually that was a big factor here that really a lot of people mentioned that changed the dynamic of the game there, was Georgia wanted nothing to do with Marvin Harrison Jr. Granted, a lot of corners don't want anything to do with Marvin Harrison Jr. He is a dog of a receiver. But you see the fact, again, 13 receptions, 3 touchdowns, 222 receptions from 2 guys on the outside, really causing a lot of problems for them. Again, so you think about that. That's where Georgia is threatening. If Michigan actually wants to take a shot at Georgia, beat Georgia. Again, they beat Ohio State by going right down the middle, rushing the ball and against that 4-2-5 defense. That 4-2-5 defense has a lot of speed and a lot of players out there, but Michigan just bullies it up front. To beat Georgia, you got to go to the outside, and let's see what they got. So we come over here to the projected starters for the next season, and the projected starters at receiver here. So we have Cornelius Johnson comes back, led the team with 500 yards receiving. Roman Wilson, more of a slot guy, and again, really a dynamic receiver, kind of can take some, carries out of the backfield, bubble screen, things like that. He had 2 carries this last season for 2 touchdowns and 40 yards. The guy that's really interesting here is Tyler Morris. So Tyler Morris is a top flight recruit. He comes in. He only had about 3 catches last year, not very many. However, he is going to be expected to be a big time player. His pro comparison from 247 Sports was Will Fuller. That's exactly what they need. They need guys on the outside, burners who can make single coverage pay. If they're able to do that, they have a shot. And think about this too. There almost seems to be this hitting collision here with a whole bunch of players coming back. We're talking about beating Georgia. Michigan's John Harbaugh is interviewing with the Denver Broncos. So it looks like, is this the final year? We thought it was after this last year, but everybody decides to come back. Harbaugh decides to come back too. And now it's like, well, this is a really good group. This is his best group that he's got. Is he going to leave after this? J.J. McNamara is going to be a junior. He could technically go for the NFL if he's ready. Again, whether or not he's there or not, I don't know. But again, that's what's going on here. We kind of seem to be heading for this collision course of, let's just say like mid-January. And again, actually more than likely, it'll probably be a little bit earlier than that because head coaches are hired after that period. So it seems to be heading that way. Now, Harbaugh's got a situation here. Does he want to leave for the NFL, where, again, he's got all those situations? Again, winning in the NFL for a guy who was a NFL quarterback is the ultimate mecca. However, it looks like, dude, he's got a good thing at Michigan. He should mess this thing up because if we look at recruiting, there's 2 teams that are up at the top for the class of 2024. Class of 2024, this next season. So again, this isn't going to play this year, but this is how they're doing so far in recruiting. And number 1 is Georgia, number 2 is Ohio State, and number 3 is Michigan. So Florida, I made a video about this before. Florida is actually doing really, really good. But again, right now, Jim Harbaugh, he's got a decision. Does he want to leave after this season? Because again, it doesn't look like the cupboard's going to get any barer than it is right now. Again, he's got a good core of guys, but man, he's got a real decision for him. It does seem like it's heading for some sort of decision here. But again, we see the season right here. They're not going to. They have some traps in this this schedule this year, but it should be a relatively favorable schedule. So checking out their schedule this year, and I'm just going to say right here, they're going to beat East Carolina, they're going to beat UNLV, they're going to beat Bowling Green. I know. Just stick with me. UNLV fans won't like me for that. Just work with me on that. Rutgers at home, they're probably going to win that too. At Nebraska is interesting. And again, we just don't know what it's going to look like with Matt Rule out there. We have no idea what to expect. Nebraska is going to be interesting. Minnesota, 2 consecutive away games could be interesting too. Okay, then they play home against Indiana, a potential trap game at Michigan State. Now, hopefully you'd think the fact that that's Michigan versus Michigan State, they would show up. You never really know. And then Purdue at home, minus Aiden O'Connell, my boy, for the Raiders. Then 3 straight games. They got at Penn State, which is apparently right now that ESPN's Football Power Index has that close to 50-50. And then they have at Maryland, and then they have home against Ohio State. Now, for some reason, the Football Power Index says that home against Ohio State, it has Ohio State as a 70% chance to win that game. I don't really know how. How many guys come back for Michigan? It's at home. They still haven't addressed the fact that they can't stop the run. Ohio State has to replace their dominant NFL quarterback and one really good receiver who actually didn't really play much last season. So I don't really see that. But again, I'm just talking about Michigan. They're already talking about beating Ohio State. They feel like they've gotten over that emotional hump. Whether or not they can beat Georgia is the next step they have to make. So Michigan is straight up drawing it back. Again, they put a bullseye on Ohio State a couple years ago. They've been able to overcome that. I would not be surprised if they win again this next season. Now, they're drawing they have a beat Georgia drill. Remember here, okay, they lost to Georgia 2 years ago. They lost to TCU this last year. They got to get to the national championship. However, I'm thinking if they think they can beat Georgia, they think they can win the national championship. Again, we'll see if it's a psychological situation. They have to be dominant on the outside at receiver. That's the only way that Georgia has been threatened these last 2 years. But we'll see, man. I'm telling you, Jim Harbaugh, the thing about him is he's kind of corny, but dude, he is a man's man when it comes to, stating what you want. Can they beat Georgia? I don't know, but they're going to try. All right, guys, that's it. You guys get in the comments right now. Let me know what you think about this whole situation. If you're an Ohio State fan, are you getting a little salty that they're already overlooking you? Kind of that situation there. If you're a Georgia fan, are you worried about it at all? Yeah, they can't even beat TCU. You guys get in the comments and let me know right now. All right, guys, that's it. Thank you so much for being here. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I really appreciate it. That's it for me, guys. I'll see you guys later. I am out.